Today I'm joined once again by Captain Seth, and before we get to Captain Seth, just as a way of a quick background, this episode is brought to us by my inklings. I've often talked about those inklings, those things that just kind of pop into our minds and we're drawn to and we don't know why and we just go with them. So, I don't know, 3 or 4 days ago I was on a walk and I was thinking about two things. I was thinking about gas prices and I was thinking about the World Domination Summit being in Portland for, I guess it's last year, this year. And that made me think of Seth because we met at a World Domination Summit, or WDS for the insiders, workshop in 2019. And WDS 2013 is what lit the fire under me that got me into podcasting and helped me find my voice. Not this podcast, but another one. By the way, this is Seth Vore from episode 110. So if you haven't listened to that one, go back to that one first. It will fill in a lot of the details and give way more context to this conversation. And I also thought of Seth on my walk related to gas prices because Seth is going to be driving a boat for a year that drinks a lot of gas. And when I originally talked to him about this trip a long time ago, I think he said it was going to cost $20,000, and all I can imagine is that now it's going to cost 40 or 50. Who knows? We're going to find out. So I did what I did, and what I do is I sent Seth an email. I said, "Hey, could we record something new on what's happened since we last talked?" And we last talked in December of 2021. So that's why we're here today. Welcome aboard, Seth.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate the the intro, and you find me today on the boat. Last we talked, I don't think we had identified a boat, so we've found the boat. We closed on the boat and all the things that entails, and so today finds me waking up on my dream boat for this year-long voyage, and it happens to be in St. Charles, Missouri, just north of St. Louis.
So you're in St. Charles, Missouri right now?
I am, yep.
So I need to say up front, I have no idea of anything that's going on with Seth. I just sent him an email and said, "Hey, can we have this conversation?" And then we just push record. So now when you say Missouri, I don't think of Missouri being near water or the waterway that you're going to be on. So how does all that work?
It actually, Missouri, St. Louis is got a lot of water, but it's the inland rivers. So we're here near the confluence of the Mississippi River, the Missouri River, and the Illinois River. And so the boat sits now at a marina here on the Mississippi River, just about 5 miles from where it will join the Illinois River. And so that puts it on this 6,000-mile Great Loop route that we intend to take this coming year. And so we're right on the route, and it's a perfect location for beginning this adventure.
So you're not going to go north, you're just headed south from here.
We are going to go north. So normally you loop in a counterclockwise direction. So you're right. Normally you would loop in a counterclockwise direction, going with the current downriver at this stretch. But we are early for where we would normally be during this time. So the main kind of group of loopers right now are somewhere between New York City and the Great Lakes is where you find yourself. We're recording this here in late June, and so loopers are between New York City and the Great Lakes. So we're pretty far beyond where most people are. And so what we're going to do is we're going to head north. We're going to head down this little 5-mile stretch of Mississippi River, go north on the Illinois River, and that puts us in Chicago in a little over 2 weeks here. And then we're going to explore Lake Michigan this summer and learn our boat and provision and fix stuff and prepare ourselves for the official journey, the formal journey. That's that 6,000-mile loop. And so we'll retrace our steps in the fall as we come back down the Mississippi River and past this spot where I'm sitting today, and be more in line with the normal route and timeline with the rest of the folks doing the same kind of a trip.
So there's kind of a backtrack.
Little bit, yep. And that goes a little bit with our personalities. I don't like to feel like I'm behind. I kind of would prefer to be ahead of the schedule and ahead of, and especially with a boat where you know, a new boat to you, things could break, things could need fixing, you might need help along the way, and so to be ahead of kind of where, I don't want to be kind of at the back of the pack. Weather is beating down on you, and you wish you were, you know, 1,000 miles ahead of where you were, and then your boat breaks. That is an uncomfortable feeling for me, and it would turn this kind of dream trip into a little bit more of a nightmare trip. And so we've got some friends that are doing it, that are catching up to the pack right now, and their boat has broken down a couple of times, and they're running with it, and they're, you know, they're getting by, and it works. But this is a much more comfortable situation for me and my personality, and my family's.
So last time I talked to you, you still had a job. You didn't have this boat, but you had another one. And you still had your house. So what have you done with your house? How did you find the boat? And what happened to your job?
So house, we are renting through kind of medium-term Airbnb. So 31-day plus rentals. For a number of reasons, but that is a good kind of sweet spot between the vacation rental, where you're turning it over every week or multiple times a week, and the, you know, lease for year plus kinds of things. And so that was a good kind of middle ground for what we wanted to do. And so we left it furnished. So all our furniture and furnishings are still in the home, but all of our personal stuff needed to get decluttered, boxed up, and put into attics and things. So we didn't rent a storage unit or anything like that. We just threw it all in boxes, took a ton of stuff to Goodwill, rehomed a lot of things, and then packed the rest into attics. And you know, the normal kinds of home fixing things that kind of get deferred when you're living in your own home, that aren't acceptable for renters, had to be fixed. And so since we last talked, that was a lot of what went on the home front. But we've got a local property management company that kind of specializes in these medium-term rentals, and they're handling the tenant screening for us, the cleaning in between tenants, the lawn care, the stuff that will break that they'll need to fix. They're handling all of that. And so that's kind of a big load off. Our first tenants start in a little over a week and a half, something like that. They move in. And I guess COVID kind of created this month-long kind of sweet spot. So a lot of digital nomads are kind of moving around, and will spend a month to kind of get a feel for a city. So if you come to Portland, you know, on a 2-week vacation, maybe you don't really experience all the things you wanted to experience. But as a nomad, you can come in, get a lower rate on your Airbnb for a month-long stay, and you know, live there and work with the Wi-Fi that's there, and move on to the next town the next month. And so when this used to be kind of a lower demand situation, it really has worked out for us, where a lot of folks that learned that they could work from home, work remotely during COVID, have been able to take advantage. And so that's you know, kind of the MO of the folks that'll be renting our house while we're gone. So then on the boat front, you asked how I found the boat. So the boat market, very much like the real estate, yes, the real estate market, it's crazy. So people are, there's way more demand than there is supply. Boats are really hard to come by. It used to be you would find a boat, have your broker find a boat, you would fly to it, you would check it out, and then you might make an offer. That's not how the current market is. You make an offer sight unseen, put down your earnest money, and then you go fly and see if it's something you're interested in. It's you write a contract with contingencies so that if it's that you can walk away if you need to, but you have to lock it up under contract right away. Otherwise, somebody else is going to snatch it out from under you, and you won't be having that boat. and the types of boats that we were interested in. So when we talked, we were looking something in the 45 to 50 foot range. We have a family of 4, so we really wanted to have 3 staterooms where everybody could have their own space, go get away from the rest of the family, read a book, have some private space on the boat. And that's kind of a tall order. And that's, a lot of, again, digital nomads and folks have been able to work from boats. And so they're hanging on to boats and buying up boats and living on them in marinas and things like that. And so it's a very tight boat market. So the way we found our boat was actually reaching out to our entire network. So I mentioned we started a YouTube channel that was mostly boat shopping. And so we reached out to folks through that channel and through the America's Great Loop Cruisers Association. It's a nonprofit that offers help for people that are wanting to do this big, long boat trip. And so on there, they have a roster of people that have done this trip before or doing the trip or planning on doing the trip. And so I just went through that list of names and boats of ones that were desirable to us that we had found that we were interested in and just hit them up and said, hey, people with same models of boats tend to find each other in marinas and at the pub and talk. And would you just mind keeping your ear to the ground? And if you hear of something, let us know. And so we worked that network hard, and it wasn't an easy process, but we ended up finding this boat through one of those channels where it was in St. Louis rather than maybe where it should have been for the season. So it wintered here. The couple was doing this trip. They had some trouble and some health issues, and so that found them here too late in the season to really keep moving. And so they flew home to Texas, left the boat here, and then through some conversations with us, they decided, we're done. We've been at this boat thing for a long time, and we're ready to let go. And your call came at just the perfect time for us. And yes, we would gladly sell your boat. So we found this boat not being even on the market, the perfect boat for us in a perfect geography for where we wanted to start our trip. And so it really, really worked out.
Amazing.
Yes.
What I hear there too is persistence in the face of, I didn't talk to clients about this all the time. They're like, well, no help is available or no jobs exist. And I always challenge them, well, don't participate in that. They're like, what do you mean? It's like, well, just look anyway. And so you were like, well, tight market, but so what? I'm going to shake every tree I can find.
Yeah. And it wasn't that it was not a frustrating experience, and we didn't get discouraged at times as we see these boats sometimes pop on the market, and by the time we call, it's gone. Or we were thinking about making compromises on the timing of our trip. Like, well, what if we bought a boat in Florida that's completely out of the geographies? We wanted to buy something, basically here or north of here, and so we were trying to scratch our heads and think of other ways we could come up with a boat, and it just by bending our requirements to see what we could do. The other thing, boat shopping in the north is very difficult because the lakes are frozen in the winter, and so you don't get a lot of opportunities to survey a boat and purchase a boat because they're all put away for the winter. And with a tight market and that complication, this last winter, we were really getting nervous about even being able to find something. So very fortunate, very glad that it worked out. And, the previous owners are very gracious folks that have been very supportive and helpful. Their commitment to this boat and this project and our family ended, when we signed the check and took possession of the boat. But as loopers that have done this trip, it's in their blood, it's in their hearts, and they really want to see us thrive and enjoy the trip. And so the little things that I found on the boat that I'm like, I wonder what this wrench does. It looks very specific, and I have no idea. I just send them an email, and I get a response back almost immediately. They're just excited for us, excited to see their boat continue looping around and adventuring. So the right boat, the right time, and the right folks that sold it to us.
So how close to the wire did you cut it?
I think as close as we probably could have. People do buy boats and just move on them and go. That's not how we roll. We're planners, we're engineers, we're overthinkers by nature, and so we needed this amount of time to do this. So I flew to this boat in February, and you can't do a survey and sea trial in this part of the world because of debris in the water and ice in the water until things thaw out. And so it wasn't until I want to say 1st of May or 1st of April that we were able to get down here and get the survey and sea trial done. They got to haul it out of the water. You can't do that during freezing temperatures, and arrange all of the different surveyors. It's not like a home inspection where this one person comes out and they have a general expertise and they crawl around under your house and check out the roof and everything in one shot. This is, you have to have a specific person for the hull, a specific person for the diesel motors, and then there's brokers involved, your buying broker and your selling broker, and all of those people have to converge on the boat on a good weather day with the crane operator to get it out of the water and all the things. And all of that worked out. I wouldn't have wanted to cut it any closer than we did. But because we also needed some work done, so that you don't expect that when you buy a boat everything's perfect. And so we had some things that I know that I'll fix myself, and some things that were beyond what I wanted to do, or at least wanted to start my dream retirement vacation doing, like scrubbing out some diesel spills in the bilge and things like that. And so we had the marina do that work, and of course we needed to schedule that in too. So they finished the week before we moved onto the boat. And now we've been here living on the boat a week, and it's ready to go.
And so how did you schedule in leaving your job in the midst of all this?
Yeah, I gave them, my boss had kind of known this was in the works for maybe a few more months before it was ready to make public. And I gave official, formal 12 weeks notice that I was going to retire from my job. And that was a long time. That was a brutally long time to continue to work and not start new projects. And I hadn't really figured on that. It was an uncomfortable time because, I'm a hard worker, I'm a diligent worker, and I don't want to cheat anybody or have the image of cheating anybody. But, when the work ran out at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and I had home improvement projects to do and decluttering and packing and boat stuff and phone calls and personal stuff going on, the work ended and that stuff began. And so it was a long time to keep all of that up. And it kind of was tough. I think both sides got a great deal out of it. I wanted to give them enough time to be able to try to hire, because I know in this job market there's a lot of it's just really hard to find quality candidates. And my position is a very niche kind of a position, and so it's chemical engineering, but it's electrochemistry, which puts you in one niche. And then I was managing a team of 4 people, and so that's not necessarily the same in the Venn diagram of things. Sometimes the engineering side and the management side, and even traditional engineering management, doesn't necessarily have a lot of overlap. And so anyway, I wanted to give them plenty of time to be able to find somebody. They ended up finding a couple people to interview at this point, but the position's still open. But anyway, I gave them lots of notice. It was awkward for the 12 weeks. It was just like a slow train that you just had to watch. But it worked out. I think much respect on both sides, and a lot of talk about would you like to come back when you're done? And of course, from what we've talked about last time, that's not my plan. My plan is early retirement, and that means to be done with work life, at least in the traditional sense of the 8 to 5 in a cubicle. So maybe I'm a boat captain in the future. Maybe I do some other things, but engineering 8 to 5 in a cubicle is at least currently not what I'm interested in doing coming back.
So in hindsight, if you were to do this again or recommend to someone, how much, if 3 months was too long, what would have been a better amount of time?
I think to have your boss know, I think 3 months would be appropriate. I think to have everybody know and be coming by your desk and wondering and wishing you well, and yet you still have to show up the next day. I think a month is probably the high end of what I would recommend. It was just a long transition.
For sure. Yeah, I feel like I gave a month notice in some job sometime, and I can't remember what job it was, and I do remember it being painful, and I was like, never again. So 3 months sounds like an eternity.
Yeah.
We're related to the job, like one of the things we talked about before was health insurance. How are you going to navigate that? So what did you end up doing with health insurance?
Yeah, so we did end up going with a health share. We shopped quite a few of them and ended up with a smaller company health share that fits well with our family. I think last time we were looking at the Affordable Care Act and some plans through that. The biggest challenge that we found with that plan was that they weren't portable. So we're from Oregon. We could get an Oregon plan, but outside of emergency care, we wouldn't be able to get normal kinds of ouch, my back hurts, or doctor visits kinds of things while we're out of state on our trip. And so that was really the thing that sealed the deal. I think when we move back to Oregon and we're just Oregon residents and without a traditional job and health insurance, we'll probably do Affordable Care Act. But while we're traveling, we found the health share to be the better way for us to go.
Interesting. And you mentioned diesel, and I mentioned it kind of at the beginning. So gas prices, what do gas prices do to this? What do they do to your plans?
So they certainly make the trip more expensive. I haven't done kind of the pie chart of what each component of the trip costs, but diesel fuel for the trip is probably a third of the price of the trip, a quarter to a third. And so now it's that part of the pie chart has grown. And that part, we really don't have much control over how much you buy. It just takes this much diesel to go around this trip. What we can do is drive slower. So this boat is capable of 30 miles an hour, but it will guzzle diesel at those speeds. The sweet spot is around 8 to 10 miles an hour, and it will not be inexpensive, but it will be a lot cheaper going those speeds. And we're not in a hurry to get anywhere anyway. That's the whole point of this trip, is to take our time and to see the sights and to look around as we go. And so driving at 8 miles an hour actually kind of sounds fun to me. So that's one way we can turn down the diesel price. And then the other way we can kind of mitigate the overall cost of the trip. So the rest of the pie chart, the largest chunk, the two other largest chunks are marina fees and eating out and kind of seeing the sights and enjoying where you are. And so for marinas, what we can do is spend less time in marinas. So this boat is capable of anchoring without being connected to shore power and water and things like that. So we have large tanks, we have a generator on board to create electricity, we have a large battery bank and an inverter so we can charge electronics and make coffee and do those things. And so we can reduce the cost a bit by making wise choices there. So we don't have to go into a fancy marina when we could just drop anchor somewhere nearby if there's a protected spot to do so. But some of these marinas are, like 5-star hotels, very luxurious, pools, hot tubs, weight rooms, laundry facilities, all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes there's a time and a place for that. But, if we spent a bit much on diesel that month, we can certainly anchor out and still take the dinghy in and go and see the sights and enjoy whatever town we're near. And then the other big piece of the pie is the dining out. And, we've been on the debt-free Dave Ramsey plan for so long now that we can dial that knob pretty easily as a family. And I don't think we're going to be missing a ton that way, but we can, we can go into town and we can have a good time and, maybe hit happy hour instead of a full-blown dinner. We can hit lunch at a place. And if we're going to go to the zoo, the museums, walk the town, whatever, we can pack some sandwiches. And I think the overall price of the trip will be a bit higher because of inflation and because of the increased diesel costs, but it is not a showstopper. It's not something that we necessarily fear. There's at this point only rumors of diesel shortages, but no actual reported. I pulled up at a marina and there was no diesel to be had. That would start to concern us, but like I said, as of now, there's no reports of actually that happening. But yeah, prices are up. It will cost more, but I think we've got a good plan and ways to deal with that.
How did you do the whole money? So you sound like planner. So how did you do the whole money thing? Like, did you just set aside a big chunk of money? Like how I'm just curious, like how you've budgeted, planned, like how do you do all this?
Yeah. So yes, we just set aside a big bunch of money. So we paid cash for the boat. Again, we're debt averse. We're Dave Ramsey through and through. So we didn't finance it. So we paid cash for the boat, and we have a year's worth of living on the boat expenses. We will rely on some of the income from our home. It's not going to be a lot. When we first set out, we just kind of wanted it to be occupied and break even and keep the grass mowed and things like that. But we'd love to have it cash flow a little bit of our trip there, and it looks like it will do that if we have pretty good occupancy, which it looks like we will. But yeah, it's just a big pile of savings that we're starting to spend through as we go, and we'll just take it as a monthly basis. We'll take the big lump sum of what we've set aside for this year, and divide it by 12 or 14 months, and try to keep ourselves under that each month, and see how we do.
And how do you manage your money for this? So you set aside a chunk of money. Do you use a particular software program? Like, how do you guys manage the numbers?
Very simply, Excel. Yeah, we dump, we dump our, bank account statements and things into Excel, and add it all up there, and that's it. So yeah, nothing fancy.
So what have you learned from all this so far?
I learned a little bit about myself that I really am. I get excited about a plan coming together. There were so many moving parts of this, and we're still, going through some of them, but to have had the house work out, the retirement work out, the logistics of getting all of our stuff for our family to the boat, and have the boat here in good shape with work having been done on it. When I look at all the things that had to have happen to make that work, I get excited that we pulled that off. Like, it just, that part excites me. And I going through it sometimes, it is a slog, but I think a worthwhile slog that I am excited by. And so I think I can apply that to other areas of my life where I can know about myself that I like taking on these big, hairy, complicated things that have a lot of moving parts, and be satisfied when they work out.
Was this even on your radar when we met in 2019?
No. I knew I wanted to do something else, but I didn't know what. I knew it probably involved boats, but I think that's as far as I really had any kind of vision. I was still very hung up on, you can't quit your day job because you can't have health insurance. You can't quit your day job because you're shirking your responsibility to your family as the provider, and on and on and on. And some of those limiting beliefs were just, and I think that's what a lot of what that conference helped me with was shutting down some of those limiting beliefs that were holding me back from really doing what I wanted to do. And so without those limitations, I was kind of allowed to dream bigger then. And I think that's how I ended up here, is just having that freedom to my wife and I have an annual planning retreat we go on, and one of the most I think exciting exercises we do is we put a blank sheet of paper up and we say, wouldn't it be crazy if? And then we just brainstorm and we write things down. And this trip was one of those things. This came out of a planning trip a little over 2 years ago, and that's how we ended up here. Is, wouldn't it be crazy if we could move onto a boat and do a year-long trip while our kids are still kids, while I'm healthy, and have it work out and have it be awesome. And here we are doing it.
What would your advice be to someone that hears all this and says, "Oh yeah, but that's too hard. Like, how would I even start?"
You just have to start, number one, and I mean, that's the thing, right? There's so many.
Yeah, no, it's like really profound, but it's so true.
You have to. It starts small. Start, aggregation of marginal gains, right? Start small and just get 1% done a day, and then 1% more the next day, and just keep piecing away at it. A trip like this had so many moving parts. Our office looked like, we're hunting a serial killer. There were, 4 walls covered in paper, covered in checklists and notes and to-dos and stuff, right? And trying to triage the different things, like what kinds of insurance do you need, and how do you do this, and how do you do that, and what kind of boat should you get, and all the what ifs. Just starting, even, and then when you don't even know what to do, just make a list. Is sometimes freeing, because then you at least have something that's not in your head bouncing around, but then it's on paper. It's out of your head. You can see it, and you can put that in priority order to whatever else. And that's how we did. That's my advice, is to just start, and then chip away at it. And then I've really been encouraged by so many people. I'm just by my nature, I'm not a ask for help or work the network kind of a person, but I've learned through this process that people are generally nice people, and they want to help, and they get satisfied by helping, right? They want to provide answers and help. And in most of my life and career, I've not been the one to reach out and ask. But that's my other advice, is just reach out and ask to someone that's walked that road already, and is willing to share with you, because sometimes some really great things come out of that.
You're both a great example of that. Wow.
Yeah.
What was the first, so you had this idea, what were like the first 1% steps that you took to even get started on this whole thing?
I think the financial one was like the biggest hairy thing, right? Like, how do you pull this off? And so the 1% thing there was, well, how much money do we have saved? And how far does that get us? Well, that gets us half a boat. Well, that's not enough. And so then, well, what do you need to get a whole boat? Okay, well, we got to save that much more. So we got to double what we have in the bank now. And then what do you do during that year? And so we had played with some idea. Well, maybe we could like work remotely during that year. And so we started piecing away at that. So the first thing was that big financial thing, and then there were tons of little smaller things that came up, like how do you the insurance question, and the kids homeschooling questions, and all of those types of things. But the financial one, and it was just starting to actually use real numbers and figure it out. And, so how much does the trip cost? And that's another one that this nonprofit helps out with, is people that have done the trip before can, log their expenses and say, well, this is what our year cost us. And so you can say, okay, well, those guys ate out a lot more than me, and they stayed at marinas a lot more than me, and the gas price was lower when they did it. So let me tweak all those a little bit, and let's see if we can afford that. Oh, we can. Okay, that's good. Or, oh, we can't, and we need to make up this much of a gap. And so there's help out there, but that's a 1%, is to just start putting pen to paper and working on some of those big hairy ones that you that hold you back, just because you say, like you said, I could never do that. Start asking, well, why not, and piecing away at those.
Well, and it sounds like too, probably one of the steps here was finding out, is there some place that can help us?
Yeah, a lot of help in the planning, a lot of help in having confidence that other people do this. Like, we're not pull out the blueprint and follow it kind of folks. We tend to live unconventional lives, and but there's a certain sense of security and peace when other people have done this exact thing. Other families have done this exact thing, and they survived. They aren't in ruin. They didn't say it was the worst year of their life. They wish they'd never done it. In fact, the opposite. And so when you start piecing those things together, then it starts to kind of build some momentum and some excitement.
So where do you predict you'll be September 1st? What will your life look like on September 1st?
September 1st this year, in just a few months, we will have summered in Lake Michigan. We will have learned our boat. We will have really got kind of our routines and systems down, and everybody kind of knows their jobs around the boat. And to me, when we pass back through Chicago, we spend the whole summer in Lake Michigan. We pass back through Chicago and actually start down the rivers, making real time, moving around this loop. In September, I think, is when we start looking outside the boat a lot more than inside the boat. Up to this point, it's been a lot of effort to acquire the boat, to make it our own, to provision the boat, to fix the stuff on the boat. But I imagine by September, the bulk of that will be done, and we will be in more tourist sightseeing adventure mode. And I'm really looking forward to that.
What are the different jobs on a boat?
Driving the boat tends to be my job. Handling dock lines and fenders, which are the bumpers that prevent you from scratching up against a dock. Between here and Chicago, we go through 8 locks because the river is a lot lower in elevation than Lake Michigan, and so we need to increase our height in the water. And so there's jobs communicating with the lockmaster about is it time to go in, and what do I do, and how do I tie up, and how do we do this safely? And then once we, and those are jobs underway. And then once we get to a place, there's always boat stuff that needs fixing. There's boat stuff that needs cleaning and maintaining. And so there's all kinds of jobs related to that. So sorting those out. And I think one of the important things too is knowing the scope of the other person's job. And so we've hired a training captain that'll board us in about a week, and he's going to help us move the boat from here to Chicago. And you wouldn't think, because me as Captain Seth, the boat captain in Portland, Oregon, you wouldn't think Captain Seth would hire a captain, but it's part marriage counseling captain and part boat training captain. It's a way for us to build confidence early in this trip that because the investment in this boat is like investing in a house, and you don't just go crash your house into something. It's although I could probably pull it off. I want these first weeks to be very pleasant and a positive, and get a positive momentum and energy going on this boat, where it's not frustration for her husband, wife, and kids. There's not yelling. There's not out of control experiences for our investment on the boat. But also just relationally, when you get in those high stress situations, words get said that sometimes you just can't repair easily and take back. And so a lot of people that are embark on this with much less boating experience hire a training captain. Ours is really to get us on a sound footing communication-wise on a boat this size. So I don't know if you've experienced this, or if you're ever like backing up the car into a campsite or something like that, where somebody's saying, "Oh, go left, go right, go left," and in order for you to hear them from the driver's seat, they've got to raise their voice, and that already puts you on edge. Like, are they yelling at me? Like, am I doing something wrong? And then maybe you're about to back into a tree or something, and then they say stop, and so then that is yelling at you, and so then you might take offense that they've raised their voice at you, and really they're just trying to get your attention, and things can melt down quickly, and that happens very much on a boat, and we've experienced that even on smaller boats, docking and wind and things like that. And so when you add length and height and everything else and complexity and unknown waterways to all of that. We want to be able to communicate clearly. So we do a couple things. We have headsets, so I can be at the helm and my wife or kids can be on the bow with a line to throw to the lock master or to the dock hand or something like that. And we can talk in normal conversational tones rather than yelling out the window, hey, throw the line, and have them react in a way that they thought they were doing something wrong, and so you yelled at them. And so we can speak over a headset in a speaking tone, and just knowing what jobs everyone has, where they are, so nobody ends up overboard or anything like that. And so that's what this first week with a captain is about. And just learning, there's a whole kind of vernacular of talking to Mississippi River barge operators that I don't know. It's a language I don't speak and need to learn quickly, and talking to bridge operators to open bridges for us, and lock masters to get us locked safely up the river and things like that. So anyway, that's why the captain, and he's a great guy, and he comes aboard our boat for 5 days, and we feed him what we're eating, and he sleeps here with us, and flies out of Chicago when we get there. So it should be a great experience.
It sounds like money well spent.
I think so. It's a tough check to write as a boat captain, but also, just as you're interviewing me here, I am going to pick his brain about, jobs post loop, because to me, this guy, he lives in Fort Lauderdale. He flies into St. Louis. He drives our boat for 5 days up to Chicago. He gets a healthy check. We feed him, and he got to spend a week on a yacht. That sounds pretty darn good to me. And post this life, people ask me, what are you going to do? You're going to go back to engineering? Well, I don't know. I might be this guy when I grow up. That sounds pretty good. So I'll be picking his brain about how that works and what he likes and doesn't like about that role. But that sounds kind of fun to me.
That's amazing. That's like a whole nother angle that I would have never thought of, like harvesting from this experience. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, anything else to report, or any surprises or epiphanies, or I don't know, anything else to bring us current?
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't feel real still. We're a week in, and freshly retired, and I was just taking a short walk around the marina, and I caught the boat out of the corner of my eye. And I've had this boat on the brain now, the model for like a year, the actual boat for 6 months, and it's still it's still like a dream state where I caught it out of the corner of my eye, and I've had it as like my screensaver at my day job, and it kind of just felt like that again. But I had to do a double take because it's real life, and it's right here, and it's happening, and I'm having those little moments and really enjoying them. That I say to my wife all the time, dear, we might just pull this off, and it's actually happening, and it's really, really cool.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Well, thanks for checking in and letting us all know what's going on and helping me follow my curiosity.
Yeah, thanks for following our story and for reaching out. It's always great to catch up, and it's perfect timing to do it. It feels like an inflection point in transitioning from the planning to the logistics stuff to now the actual moving the boat. And so it's perfect time to catch up.
Thanks for listening to The John Polster Show. Notes, links, and all that other good stuff for this episode are at johnpolster.com/podcast. Send your questions, ideas, or a simple hello to podcast@johnpolster.com. Want to stay up to date on new episodes and receive notifications of upcoming events? Register your email address at johnpolster.com/updates.